We're now 6 rounds deep into Season 4 of the 2016 iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series, and what an event and what a circuit we come to. From Zolder last week, across the border into France, and into the historic Circuit de la Sarthe. It is the Le Mans circuit here in France. It's here on RaceSpotTV on iRacingLive, and it's on Friday night prime time. We'll be back after these messages to take you into the one-lap qualifying and the grid very shortly. It's Friday night prime time on RaceSpotTV and iRacingLive. Welcome to round 6 of Season 4 of the 2016 iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series, and what a venue we come to. It's one of the most famous race circuits in the world. Of course, it is the fantastic Circuit de la Sarthe. It is, of course, the Le Mans 24-hour course. Not the Bugatti circuit, we are on the full 8.5 mile circuit, and some fantastic 40-minute action of racing is going to be absolutely amazing here. Hugo Luis on cameras, I'm Scott Woodward, alongside me once again is Randy Chen, with only about 3 minutes left in the qualifying session, which is a single lap shootout. And Randy, after Zolder last weekend, what a way and what a race circuit to come to. One of the best in the world, and surely tonight one of the most challenging they'll face on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, this is a challenging circuit in its own right. I mean, a lot of people look at it as like, well, you're going straight for about 7 of those 8 miles, so it can't be that difficult, but you're going to have the car so trimmed out that it's going to be scary through the Porsche curves, scary through Tetra Rouge, scary through Indianapolis. You know, it is a very difficult circuit, especially with the draft. This is going to be probably the best racing we're going to see all season. You know, it is a relatively easy circuit to get yourself around, but when you have packs of cars and you have to work the draft, it can be actually quite tricky, and it's going to be interesting to see who can do it well and who can't.
Very, very true. One of the key things, of course, is the straight line capabilities. We know cars like the McLaren, for example, are incredibly quick in a straight line. Those guys are going to really be at any advantage, and surely guys like Denis Grabowski, and potentially, if he's in the McLaren tonight, Frederick Rasmussen, who's won 5 of the last 6 races, the only way he failed to win was, in fact, at Bathurst, which Denis Grabowski was able to pick up for himself. These guys are going to be the strongest, but what about cars like the Audis? Maybe if we're going to see any BMWs or Mercedes in the mix. What sort of chance do they have, potentially, Randy, on this sort of circuit? Or is it simply going to be one where the Audis and McLarens will simply run rings around everyone else?
Well, the McLaren is definitely the strongest of the 4 cars, or excuse me, of the 5 cars within this configuration. And I mean, it's important to remember for everyone, the GT3 cars do not have a Le Mans aero kit, and that's part of what makes these cars so sketchy through the likes of Tetra Rouge and Porsche curves, because they still have all that front aero when you want to take as much wing as you possibly can off of it. And so, I mean, the McLaren's still lightning quick. The Mercedes is actually quite good, which might confuse people, but it's just the gearing and the way the torque curves of that big V8 in the Merc. It's able to essentially hold on to the power a little bit late into the rev range compared to the Audi. The Audi and the Merc are actually about the same. The Audi may be slightly quicker. The BMW is just, I mean, it's at a huge disadvantage. And the Ford, from what I understand, is also quite competitive. But this is looking like pretty much the Macca Cup in this session. I think I count 2 Audis, a Merc, a BMW, and the rest are all McLarens.
Looks though it is going to be the dominance from Woking then. It'll be a case of almost you want to be safe to put a bet on the fact that it will be a McLaren that wins the race tonight. But which McLaren and which driver behind the wheel, that's not really a safe bet to make on that one in terms of any individual driver. Only a couple of minutes left to go. The session is now done, which means that I'll let Randy take you through the grid to see how they line up for round 6 tonight here at Le Mans. Randy, all yours.
Down your starting grid, we have Rocco Barone, the Coena Sinsport driver, coming home with pole of a 352.1, 4/10 up on Ricardo Castroledo P2, Jan Piesnik and Vedran Krosh, that's row number 2, with Matty Kasoja and Rold Diago, row number 3. Row 4, Daniel Cruz and Simon Fagel, with Denis Grabowski and Tom Valentini, row number 5. Rodding and Lorenz, row 6, with Avery and Hewlett, row number 7. Ricardo Farrap and Dakota Fripp, that's row number 8, with Antoris Kiglusu and Julian Offrit, row 9, with Ricardo Silva and Luigi Nespolino, row number 10. Bruno Fontabla and Ro Garcia, row number 11, with Jan Klotman and Sander van der Velde in row number 12. Important to note, Cohen is in the BMW, so all those people behind him, how did you manage to get yourself out-qualified by BMW? Cameron Basal in 25th with a 59.2. The final 4 did not actually put in qualifying times. They may have delegitimized their lap. It's important to know, with only 8 minutes to get a lap in, you only get a single lap. So a 1x essentially takes you out of it. Riley Preston, Rodrigo Barino, Roberto Gutierrez, and Mirko Salati.
I have to say, Riley Preston down towards the back of the grid, he's one of those drivers that really does normally sort of culminate. He didn't get a lap in, but he's going to be one to watch from towards the back of the grid. He is a very quick driver, someone who's always in and around the top 10, can be challenging for top 5 places. He's a key driver to watch. But Rocco Barone starting on pole position, the VRS Coanda Simsport driver in the McLaren, hopefully looking to try and grab himself a victory here. And with a qualifying performance like that, Randy, how good would you assess his chances? As we said, the McLarens are good with the strongest cars out there, but does it really appear as though that Rocco has got the pace here to be the strongest out of the McLarens, do you think?
Well, I mean, he was 4/10 up on Castroledo and John Pisnik and the likes of everyone else, so that is a very lightning quick time. This, the problem is just he's going to get through Tetra Rouge for the first time, just going to be immense amounts of draft, and he's not going to be able to break away here, and that's basically going to be how this entire race plays out. How are you going to play the draft, and how aggressive do you want to be? How much fuel can you save? Because with the draft, you can save a good chunk of fuel, and you can get yourself a nice short stop to maybe jump someone in the closing laps.
Speaking of pit strategy, we are expecting cars to be pitting around about lap 8. Of course, lap time wise, it's probably going to be around sort of looking at the roughly the 4-minute mark or so for those guys. The pace car is now underway, so that means Rocco Barone will head behind the Ford Mustang pace car into the Porsche curves they'll come. And there's going to be some really fantastic corners here. You'll see the runs down the Mulsanne straight into the 2 chicanes, the battle towards the Mulsanne corner. You've got great overtaking spots like Arnage, also the high-speed Porsche curves as well, and even up into the Dunlop S's too. This is a classic circuit. It should hopefully be a classic 40-minute race. I'm going to leave you with Randy to take you through the race start on this one. Barone starts on pole, but Randy, of course, with everyone around him, how safe is he going to be down towards turn 1?
Well, turn one is going to be interesting, and just when these guys get the green, it actually makes the starts, at least for the front of the field, relatively clean, because they get the green essentially towards the tail end of the Ford chicane, and because of that, they'll be a little bit spread out, what with the outside line really being at a disadvantage. However, if you're in the middle of the grid, maybe down towards the back, getting that green flag in the middle of that Ford chicane is quite difficult. So there is a slight window to maybe break away if you're up at the front, if you can get yourself a good solid run out of that Ford chicane when everyone else is kind of tripping over themselves. But I don't know, this is going to be a tough one, and this might be the best race of the championship as pace car is actually hitting pit road. The jets are starting to fly over into the first part of the Ford chicane. This is a very quick portion of it. You'd be all over the curb, then Rocco looks like he's going to go early, just barely through the Ford chicane. He's already on it. They're already single file amongst the top few number of cars. The rest of the field, though, side by side, still tripping over each other. Dennis Grabowski already has himself damage, and a couple people running wide through the exit of the Ford chicane. But we are green for the first time at Le Mans.
Yeah, up into turn one then for the first time. Rocco Barone leads the field away for round 6 of season 4 of the iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series. A sea of McLarens charging up towards the chicane for the very first time, and as they turn their way through, it is going to be the lead for Rocco Barone. In second place, Ricardo Castrolado. Up in third place, John Peasnick. Then we've got Vedran Kral is already up into fourth. Then we have P5 is and so. Oh, and contact in the rear. Who was that? Someone going around. It's Daniel Cruz in the 22. Goes around off into the gravel. He rejoins, but he's way down the order after a bit of contact as they head up through the S's, up through Tertre Rouge for the first time. And now the charge down the Mulsanne straight for the very first time. This is where slipstream battles are going to be key all race long here. Cars getting into the draft. And it's a majestic sight watching 29 GT3 cars pile their way at speeds around 175 miles an hour down towards the first chicane. But so far, Randy, Barone has the lead. Castrolado trying to go with him here in these early stages.
Rocco actually did a very good job through the Ford chicane to be able to stretch this gap over Castrolado on Peasnick, so he's going to have a little bit more room to work with than maybe one would normally expect here, and that's actually certainly the biggest gap I've seen a leader get in these opening laps. But like we said before, he's not going to be out of the woods quite yet, because it isn't out of the question that those guys behind can work together, and if anything, you have to race smart here at Le Mans. People see this as an easy track, but it kind of goes against your driver brain instincts of I need to pick up positions, because even if you get a run down one of these long Mulsanne corners into one of these chicanes, there's no reason to go making some late dive bomb move early on in the race, because what you do, you make that maneuver, you're going to go side by side through one of those chicanes, you're going to get a bad run off the corner, and you will lose the toe of the cars that are ahead of you. And because of that, over the course of a race, yeah, you might have just picked up a spot now, but over the course of that run, without that slipstream, you will cost yourself more time as you get ready to go braking into Mulsanne for the first time.
Yeah, and they just threw a little kink of the right-hander, under brakes now, then front end dives under the braking is the number 1 of Rocco Barone, turns it right through the Mulsanne, a little wide on the exit over the curbs. Ricardo Castrolado in second place is already coming under pressure from John Peasnick. I've done a bit of a count through. The top 19 cars are all McLarens. If you look down towards about Julian Offray, which is back down in roughly sort of 18th, 19th place, but even then he's got a McLaren for company. The next Audi in the mix behind him is actually Roque Garcia. And then the extra non-sort of cars that are not McLarens. You've got the BMW of Cohen Klopman, who's fallen back, as is the Mercedes of Canna Basol. They're down towards the bottom end. For Dennis Grabowski's also sort of lagging behind a tiny bit as well. He's back down in P9. The cars then already through Indianapolis for the first time, up towards the almost 90-degree right of Arnaud as they pitch their way through. And still already Barone trying to extend his gap here, but so far Castrolado, Randy, not getting away from John Peasnick in third, and they've got to be careful because it could become a trio. Vedran Kral is already going with them too.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost destined to become a trio because, with the gaps they have, I think your top 3 cars here, of second, third, and fourth, they're going to become a trio because Vedran Kral, he is close enough to get that slipstream, and I think Jan Peasnick is smart enough to know that he doesn't need to go racing with Ricardo Castrolado super hard just yet in these early stages. He knows he has the draft, and, we talk about pit stops. You can save fuel here down this Mulsanne, just... if you don't plan on leapfrogging with Ricardo Castrolado, you can essentially roll out of the throttle. You'll save gas all the way down each stretch of the Mulsanne, down the entire stretch Indianapolis, down the stretch into the Porsche curves, and you can save a lot of fuel with that. In addition, because you'll basically want to lift out of the gas a little bit as well if you plan on keeping yourself single file. You can save yourself a lot of fuel, and that it may not sound like a lot. It may only equate to about a gallon and a half. But in these cars, that's about a second or so, maybe closer to 2 seconds. And that, I mean, the gap from Ricardo Castelletto to Rocco Barone right now is 8/10, is 1.6 from Rocco to Jan Piesnik. So if you save yourself 2 seconds in a pit stop, if you're Jan Piesnik, you go from running 1.5 seconds off the lead in third to having about a half a second advantage in the lead.
So 1 lap in the books then. Barone continues to lead, as you said, by about 8/10 of a second. The first flying lap out of the start was a 3:56.655 by Barone, so he set the tone for the rest of the field. There was a couple of cars that had some problems. Castelletto is now P4, has a slow down.
Oh, spinner! Who spun?
Castelletto actually spins.
Jan Piesnik! No, it wasn't
spins.
Castelletto. Castelletto caught himself a slowdown, I think, going through the Dunlop chicane for the second time, and Jan Piesnik actually, on the run up towards Tetra Rouge through the later part of the S's there, there's that left and then the right, and going up and over the crest of the right-hander on the exit, the car got light, he was on the curb, the back end came around, he got into the wall. That's pretty much going to be Piesnik's day done, I'd say. That car should still be running, but with that much aero damage on that, I think it's going to be an uphill battle from here. He's going to have to depend on attrition to get to basically not finish last.
That now means that Barone has got quite a sizable margin now up in the lead. It now means that Vedran Kral is up to second place as a result of that in car 13. Raul Diago is now currently sat in third, then Kai de Soya in fourth. Denis Grabowski only sat in P5 at the moment, and also just falling away from Kai de Soya and actually coming under attack now, being closed in by Simon Fagel behind the number 14. Then Kevin Rutting, Tom Valentini, and Sergio Lorenz is also in the mix as well, and Richard Avery in car number 7 in there too, the McLaren. And through the second part of the chicane, Richard Avery almost getting slightly too deep into the first part, but gets it corrected up as they exit back out onto the third part of the Mulsanne Straight. Of course, it's not like how it used to be with the one long run back from Tertre Rouge all the way down to Mulsanne Corner. They had to put the chicanes in roughly around 1990 after lots of incidents, lots of runs where the cars used to be running at the prototypes at least some 240 miles an hour. They're not going that quick in these GT3 machines, but certainly the pace they're running is absolutely superb. Out of Mulsanne then for the second time. Barone again continuing to extend that advantage, and this is key, of course, Ryan, the fact that he can try and make as much advantage as he can from the fact that both Castelletto and Piesnik have both come to strife. He's got quite a gap to Kral behind, and so far he's spread eagling and doing it well.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The fact that he has this big gap right now, and he can sort of he doesn't need to push full hard now, because here at Le Mans, actually, as I say that, going through Indianapolis, gets a little bit of the dirt on the exit now as he goes down into Arnage. But, this circuit, you want to push hard, but at the same point, you have to be somewhat reserved at this track. I mean, look at the gaggle of cars behind, though, once you get to the second place on back. There's about 8 or 9 McLarens all in a train just for position, and that's what Rocco needs to make sure that he doesn't allow himself to get brought back into, because one slight mistake like Piesnik's, even if he just gets loose, and suddenly Vedran Kral would be probably within the slipstream. And the slowdowns here as well at Le Mans iRacing, there's several parts of the circuit where you think it might be a 1X, however they don't want people abusing the track limit, so instead they put in slowdowns. So for example, as you exit the Porsche curves here, exiting this left-hander, you would think that you could use a bit of that one off and get a 1X. You don't get a 1X going out there, but you can get a black flag, and when you do that, it's about 2 seconds or so that you lose in your lap. And if you're Rocco Barone, you can't afford one of those slight mistakes to get yourself reeled back in by the rest of that big pack behind.
In that pack, one we're going to watch for is Denis Grabowski. He actually won the 6 p.m. split earlier on, but he's now really going for it, hopping over the curbs of the Ford chicane. He is currently sat in P4 at the moment. He has made a move, and that's a slowdown penalty there, you see. He cut the chicane too much. That's it in effect there, you see. He had to give the place up to Kai de Soya, and also Simon Fagel coming alongside him also, losing several places because of that slowdown. So really, that's just how much of an effect it can have, Randy. The fact that he was only in P4, but that one little cut in the chicane has cost him 4 or 5 places. That's how dramatic it can be on a circuit like Le Mans, where it's so long, where you've got plenty of time to try and make it up, but in its early stage, you can lose a lot of time very, very quickly.
Yeah, exactly, and it can be really difficult when you're in the pack. If you're Denis Grabowski, where he was, bit of cars in front of him, it's a little bit easier to put that wheel off as you go into one of those chicanes and get yourself that black flag. And, if you're Rocco Barone, you basically have clear track, relatively easy, but with everyone, kind of blocking the way, blocking your vision a little bit as you go through the chicanes, as well as the fact, if people are jostling for position, you might do a slight maneuver to avoid something, and, you might just put a wheel off. It is really easy to do, especially in one of these big packs.
Got a move here coming on. It looks to be Simon Fagel and Kevin Rutting are going to change places up towards the first part of the chicane. Looks to me as if it's, I think, possibly Fagel getting on the inside. Looks like he has managed to get the move done, mate. Or is it Kevin Rutting just in front? I'll double check it on that before. It is Kevin Rutting who's made the pass. So Rutting is now up past Fagel. That now moves him into, I think that looks to be 6th or 7th position. But look behind him as well, Sergio Lorenz. So Tom Valentini, car number 3, with the headlights flashing. He's now going to try and close on Fagel as they come up towards the second part of the chicane. He does have the inside line. It's a drag race down towards it, but looks as though Valentini has to slot back in, gain the toe once more, back down towards the braking zone. So he couldn't put himself alongside. And that's the key thing, of course, in that one, Randy. Of course, if you can't hold the toe long enough on a straight like this, particularly with a circuit that's got so many long straights, so many long runs where the draft is key, then really you're going to lose out big time if you really can't put yourself alongside to try and make a pass into one of these sharp braking zones like the chicanes or even Mulsanne Corner.
Well, that's part of the reason I'm saying that is, in these early stages of the race, there's no real reason to go pulling out alongside. Because, for example, you have Dennis Grabowski, who's currently on the back of Sergio Lorenz. Let's say that Dennis going down into the, even if he comes off Mulsanne here, if he goes to cut to the right side of Sergi here on the run towards Indianapolis, he's not going to pick up any ground because, yeah, he'll have the slipstream, but he'll duck out, and Sergio will still be working off the slipstream of Tom. And because of that, if you're Grabowski, you're never going to be able to pull alongside. And if you do get alongside, and if you force it side by side into Indianapolis, you're only going to lose time to the likes of Valentini and Simon Fegel. Like Valentini's doing it right now and showing the nose. I don't think there's any reason to do that. It's just, it's looking very short at towards the rest of this race. Yeah, you'll pick up a position now, but your chances of picking up positions later on in the race, your chances of being able and being with that lead pack somewhere around lap 5, lap 6, lap 9, lap 10, lap 11 towards the finish gets much, much more difficult. It pays off in dividends at this place to be a little bit patient.
Also behind as well, Sergio Lorenz and Grabowski were both starting to close in on Valentini in front. Rocco Barone's advantage out to 3.7 seconds, but there's a trio up for second place is the one I think we have to try and watch out for. Vedran Kral at the head of the trio for second in car 13. Unlucky for some, but it's certainly working out well for Vedran at the moment. He's being chased down by car 20. That is Raul Diago and also Mati Kaidasoya in car number 21. These guys battling over second, third and fourth. Then we have, of course, it's Kevin Rutting in 5th, Simon Fagel 6th, Tom Valentini in 7th place in car number 3. And it's Sergio Lorenz and then the recovering Dennis Grabowski after he had his slowdown penalty. He's got the headlights flashing as well. And, I mean, these guys will try and do that as much as they can, Randy. They want to try and find the distraction techniques to try and make sure that they can force the car into a mistake, into a slowdown penalty if they can try and make it happen. But in this case, really, it looks as though that possibly Lorenz wasn't that intimidated. Grabowski possibly has to go back to the drawing board on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little being a little over aggressive here with flashing the lights, but when that feature first released, it caught some people out. But I think most people are used to it because there are some people that kind of bound it to buttons and they would hold it down the entire time. Because of that, people are they tune it out at this point. But a good run so far from the entirety of this real leading pack, and I'm actually surprised that they're not reeling in the likes of Rocco Barone just yet. Vedran Kral is also starting to stretch the gap just a little bit. I figured this pack would likely try to work together to reel Rocco in, but Rocco's done a fantastic job to stretch himself out to a 4-second lead. And at this point, if they're going to reel in Rocco, it's going to have to be through that pit stop. Rocco is surely pushing hard right now, so if these if people in this second group are saving any bit of fuel, they could reel that gap down by a bit. And that's I think they have to be doing that at this point, seeing how far away that number 1 VRS Commando SimSport machine is.
We're now on lap 4, and we're just about 12 minutes, or over 12 minutes, so we're past a quarter distance in this race already here. This is round 6 of Season 4 of the 2016 iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series at Circuit de la Sarthe, the Le Mans 24-hour course, one of the greatest racetracks in the world. And these cars are fighting it out here. GT3 machines. They have raced at Le Mans. They did the Road to Le Mans event earlier on this year in 2016 with the LMP3 cars. So GT3 cars have run in real life at Le Mans before. So expect no strangers to it. But an actual dedicated GT3 race is, of course, happening here for the first time. Of course, with the Sprint Series, it's a welcome addition to the calendar. Let's keep watching this battle for second then. It's still Kral from Diago from Kaidasoya, but the car to watch here, Randy, surely is Kevin Rutting, because his last lap time around was only couple of tenths off the lap time last time from Rocco Barone. And the thing is, I've said it so many times in commentary, the harder these cars in front fight each other, the easier it's going to be now on that one, Randy, for Rutting to only to try and pass. When he does, start to make a break in the process.
Yeah, I mean, it would be easier if these guys really started scrapping, but like I said, as Charles is actually this lap, the gap behind Aurel Diago and Matty Kasoja has come down, just down the run of the Mulsanne and going to Indianapolis. You know, they should get a bit of the draft as well to close that gap. And actually, Matty Kasoja is going to kind of show the nose as they go into Indianapolis, and like I talked about earlier, I don't think there's really no reason, there's no reason to do this. He's going to bring it back into single file, and it's a little surprising to me that people in this top group are trying to pick up some positions and really showing the nose and harassing the mirrors, because even if you force that person into a mistake, if you force him into a mistake and it costs you time, if you let Rocco get 2, 3, 4 seconds ahead up the road, no matter what your pit strategy is, there's no way you reel him in after that. So just stay calm, stay cool, work together, have a bit of patience, have a bit of maturity, and try to work yourself forward. Think about the late game, not about the now.
They say the circuit Le Mans 24 hours. I have to agree with that one. It's more like they say it's the Grand Prix of endurance. They certainly treat this race like a Grand Prix on an endurance circuit as they filter through the awesome Porsche curves, the way these corners wind their way all the way through the double left and the long right once again as they take you back towards the pits, back towards the Ford chicane at the end of lap 4 here at Le Mans. And still the order remains the same. Kral second, Diago third, Cardasoyo in fourth. Kevin Rutting has closed in, and the interesting thing is also, look behind him, he's bringing Thomas Fagel, Tom Valentini, Sergei Lorenz, and Des Grabowski, and Richard Avery in the mix as well. So they're all closing in as they keep on their big bite of curb on the exit of the Ford chicane from Matty Cardasoyo. Across the line they go once again, then gap is out to 4.3 seconds at the head of the field for Rocco Barone, and Kral's pulled out 6/10. And watching Cardasoyo, who's been closed in now by Rutting in the draft up towards the Dunlop chicane. And surely now at this point, Randy, as we're getting towards sort of half distance already, we're 15 minutes into the 40-minute encounter. At this point, Rutting has to get to the point where he can be close enough to try and attack, but not necessarily in the draft, where he can try and just outbrake and outfox Cardasoyo into one of those tight and slower corners. Do you think that's the key for Rutting to try and do that, or is he saving himself, like many others will be, to leapfrog other guys in the pit stop by trying to save a tiny bit of fuel and go that little bit longer to hopefully get an undercut over anyone else when they stop later on for fuel?
Well, I think the problem here with Le Mans is that there's not a lot of places where you can actually make a pass and really do it without losing yourself any time, especially to the cars ahead. Really your best opportunity would be going into Mulsanne, but if they fight you, it's not out of the question that they can hold it around the outside a little bit going through Mulsanne and cost you a good amount of time. And if they cost you a bit of time, and if you lose the slipstream going down that run, say into Indianapolis, then you're simply just probably going to get passed down that run because now they'll have your slipstream, even if they didn't get a great exit coming out of that corner. So that's one of the things about Le Mans. Yeah, it's an 8.5-mile circuit, some great racing, and certainly one of the most historic race circuits in the world. Actually, veteran Kral didn't get a good exit out of that first chicane, and that's going to move Matty Kasoja up into P number 3. Excuse me, Raul Diago up into P2, and Matty Kasoja into P3. As we seem to have lost Scott as they go down into the second chicane here and then through the apex of it, and Matty Kasoja, he's going to have his mirror full of Kevin Rotting behind, Simon Fagel, Tom Valentini as well. This pack is really starting to heat up on the run down into Mulsanne for the 5th time.
If I kept my mic plugged in, effectively wouldn't have to lose myself so much. But there was an incident for Cohen Klopman in the BMW just back at Turk Rouge. He's back going again, but substantial damage to the Z4 as he continues on to try and recover back to the pits. In fact, he is back. He has actually gone back to the pits and possibly even fast towed or retired. So that's him potentially done and dusted. Meanwhile, Rocco Barone still leading by 4.3 seconds. That gap has stabilised at the front. It's not going out anymore because Barone now continuing to spread eagle the field in car number 1.
Veteran going down into Indianapolis. We just saw him lose to 2nd place and going now down on the run. He uses the draft. He's going to pull out side by side. So he's deciding that he wants to go forward. He might realize that Rocco is essentially out of touch and there's no reason to really be patient at this point. Rocco already breaking into Arnage practically. These guys just getting through the apex of Indianapolis. So Veteran, we saw him have that little mistake, lose a couple spots, finally got himself, just a short time later, back up into 2nd place.
Train is starting to form behind him then, so Kral up in 2nd place, still Diago 3rd, then it's Cardasoyo in 4th, Rotting 5th, and then we have Fagel 6th, Valentini 7th, Grabowski's now up to P8 past Sergei Lorenz, Richard Avery's tacked himself on, so this 9-car train, all of them McLarens and all battling over the podium places, This is what the Blancpain Sprint Series and iRacing is all about. This is top-class GT3 racing, which is backed by SRO, and it really is showing that effectively the racing here is as good as it is on the real racetracks, of course, in the Endurance Series and in the Sprint Series. These guys racing hard, racing fast. It's a 12-week championship to some of the finest race circuits in the world, and they're certainly proving it here. And this dominance of the McLarens here, looking back through the order very, very slightly as we keep an eye on that scrap amongst the top 10. Jake Hewlett sits 11th ahead of Riccardo Castelletto, who's recovering after his, what was a slowdown penalty before. He's obviously coming to some strife earlier on. In fact, he makes the early dive to the pit lane. So Riccardo Castelletto in car number 2 has managed to make the first pit stop then at the end of lap 5. So that could be an early piece of strategy there to try and fuel himself and run sort of equal stints of fuel here. And that's going to be pretty interesting there as we come towards practically the half distance here at Le Mans. But so far, this point, Randy, Rocco Barone has been virtually unchallenged. He's just running away with it at the tune of almost 6 seconds, and really he's looking fairly relaxed.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, Rocco is just running away with it at this point, and I'm actually a bit surprised with Riccardo Castelletto coming down the pit lane right now, and, you know, there's a couple things to maybe think about that. I think it's too early, and the fact that he comes down the pit lane alone means that when he's going to get back out there, yeah, he won't have any traffic, but most importantly, he's not going to have any draft, you know, which is huge going down all these straightaways here at Le Mans. So I think it's still too early for Riccardo to have made that call, and it's going to be a bit of a struggle for him, I think, the rest of the run. I think what this is earlier on in the week, we started with 40% fuel load, but a couple cars had trouble if the race went to 11 laps, actually making it to the end. So iRacing actually, as of this morning, bumped it up to a 50% fuel load. So you can max the car out at half tank. In the Blancpain Sprint Series. Well, it was 40% before this, and at every other circuit they bumped it up to 50% because a couple cars couldn't quite stretch 11 laps. A couple of them could, so there was a big balance performance issue there. And actually, Riccardo got kind of lucky. Julian Offret got out just in front of him, but I'm just curious, maybe Riccardo didn't quite have that car filled to the brim that he could potentially have, maybe still running that 40% fuel load, because that 40% lap 5 was the window.
Back towards the battle for second, still looking very close indeed. Carlos Sawyer was trying to line up Raul Diago there or thereabouts on the run towards the second part of the chicane as the train of McLaren MP4 12C GT3s funnel its way out of the second chicane, now up towards the crest before they flick right up towards the huge braking zone of the very tight Mulsanne corner. And the order staying as it is. They're still very in close proximity. It's almost like a NASCAR race. These cars do sound a bit like NASCARs with their V8 engines in them. And their way through. Kral just backing up the rest of the pair of Diago and Carlos a little bit. In fact, here comes Kevin Rutting. In fact, he's got to try and get a run, but now he's out of the draft. He may start to struggle here. He will try and put himself alongside Carlos Sawyer. They'll go side by side to the first part of the kink on the back section. And Rutting, if he can keep here, may have a great chance to put himself into fourth position here. Here they come, second part of the kink. Rutting is still there as they come up towards the run towards Indianapolis. They are flat out at 180 miles an hour. Side by side, up towards it. He lets Carlos Sawyer have it, and Rutting steps back in. And again, pure example of what you're talking about, Randy, the fact that he pulls out, but unless he has a draft to help him in front, he can't get himself far enough alongside with enough pace to pull off that move. It's simply impossible without help of a draft in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, this track really, it's like a super speedway is for the guys that run a NASCAR. You know, think about Talladega or Daytona. You can't just go up and create a third lane all on your own without help and be able to, you know, jump the field. The moment, you know, just sticking with that example, if you're on the outside, you go to the outside, the ultra outside, make it 3 wide, you're just going to fall back and you'll get freight train. And it's the same example here on that run down Indianapolis. It's actually kind of Soja through the middle of the through the entry of the Porsche curves, got a little bit loose and a little bit out of line, cost himself about a 10th there, I'd wager. But I mean, think these guys are right on it here as they go through the Porsche curves. It's going to be interesting. Are people going to be coming down this time, or was it going to be in a couple laps left? We were estimating lap 8, but actually, Rocco, he's going to come down pit road here on lap number 6. Will the rest of the field come through? Will people stay out? Veteran Kral, he's going in. Raul Diago, he's actually going to stay out. This is a good call, I think. And look at this. This is what we were talking about in terms of the people who are able to save. And, you know, these guys, they're going this extra lap. They may have spent this entire first stint saving, but you use roughly 2 gallons or so of fuel per lap here. And a 2-gallon shorter fill getting to your end is actually quite considerable.
And the interesting thing also as well is effectively if you're in the draft, you don't necessarily have to be at full throttle, of course, because if you've got the toe in front with the advantage of the car in front punching a hole through the air, it means effectively it's clearing it for you, which means that you can go at the same pace as the car in front, but use half the throttle. So that's already the advantage of being in the toe. You can bet to use less throttle, but still be at the same speed as the cars around you, which means that you could be saving fuel whilst going at something like 175, 180 miles an hour. It sounds crazy, but it actually can work if they work it like that. So this now means that Raul Diago has assumed the race lead then up at this front point in time. We're now on lap 7 here at Le Mans. Looking at the rest of the order behind him, and Diago then currently holds the current lead, with Fagel in second place, Valentini into third. Dennis Grabowski could be one of the main benefactors here in P4. Could be playing it safe here in the draft, not just concerned too much. He's had a fairly quiet race, made 1 or 2 moves, but hasn't really been charging through because he's maybe just playing the longer game in terms of letting his fuel tank run longer than other people and letting others sort of push harder than they need to. Behind him also then in 5th place is Sergey Lorenz, then Richard Avery is up to P6, Jake Hewlett is now up to 7th, Rocco Barone has made his stop and is back out in 8th place, but he's pretty much in no man's land right now. Vidram Kral is 9th, and Matti Cardosoya couldn't leapfrog him in the stops. He's down to 10th with Kevin Rutting in 11th. So this is the key point here, is that not only, Randy, did Rocco Barone manage to keep his lead in front, of course, obviously, but it seems as though with his fuel stop, he seems to have even gained a little bit more time to try and maintain that advantage, which effectively could, I think, still give him the net lead.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Rocco did a great job on that first stint, even out there alone to... I mean, he would have been using the most amount of fuel potential. I mean, just considering the fact that he didn't have a draft. Really no way you can save here at Le Mans without losing time, especially if everyone's going full tilt with the draft. So the fact that he's able to keep this lead is actually huge. I'm really interested in when this second group comes down, because one thing about Le Mans here is that it is a somewhat tricky pit in here. It's a sort of tricky inroad, as there's basically a chicane on the entry, and you know, if you're alone, if you know, maybe you in another car, it's not really a big deal, but we're pretty much 100% sure that this entire currently leading pack is going to be hitting the pit lane this time around, and I would be very surprised if these guys didn't trip over each other in some way as they got into the pit lane, and that could cost them a huge amount of time. As actually Raul Diego has Simon Fagel going out to his outside, and actually the car behind of Valentini, he actually is going to lift out of it. And actually, no, Raul, he's going to keep it. Simon gives it to him on the outside on the entry into Indianapolis.
Tell you what, it's almost like it'd be like rush hour on the M25 when they come into the pit lane altogether, as now Fagel looks to the outside potentially to make a move on Diago for track position. He can't get it done on that occasion. Valentini stays in front. He flashes the headlights as well. He wants these guys to try and get on with it because he knows that effectively the longer they fight each other, it's going to be pretty tricky. Here comes Fagel to try and put himself to the outside. He wants to lead the pack into the pits if he can help it. He's almost going to the edge of the track, go the pair, and Fagel trying to make the move, sweeping around the outside. But Diago's having none of it. Slides back up to the first part of the end of the into Maison Blanche, and then into the Porsche curves then. All together. Now the advantage that Diago had across the line last time around has virtually vanished, and that's the advantage of the toe being able to work together and close in that much. So Diago, once he had about a couple of seconds gap on the cars around, he allowed them to close up. Now this is the key point then, is everyone then in the 6-6 car pack going to turn right into the pit lane? Here they come in, and the answer is yes, they all do. Look at that, filing in look at that in pretty much in formation, if you like. Jake Hewlett also in the background goes in too, as that happens, as they head through in the mix. So that means now that it should then give, we think, the Rocco Barone #1 car back into the lead. He's already coming up out of the Porsche curves now. The rest of the cars in the pit lane haven't really just stopped yet. They're still just making their way into pit road. So that looks like the lead's going to go back to Barone, and by some margin.
Yeah, it should go back to Barone here. He's already through the first part of the Ford curves, through the Ford chicane, and now into the latter part of it. And now, how short of a stop are these guys going to have? Actually, I think I saw a couple guys maybe go drive right through their box, and that's going to be a big mistake. Rocco's coming through now, and Dennis actually is already driving away. And now, as they come exiting, Rocco is going up into the chicane. I think the gap will be... It'll be about the same from what it was, I think, about 4 seconds, which is what he has on the rest of the field. So I'm a little surprised that everyone else didn't close up a little bit going the extra lap. But, I mean, still, great for Rocco to be able to hold this gap alone out here. I mean, great run from him.
I'll tell you what, it's action stations behind the third place because Kral's got himself back into second place. But Diago came up right in front of Kevin Rutting, and also as well the battle that's going on in that mix between Cardosoya and it looks to me also Sergey Lorenz. So we'll see exactly how they shake out. We're going to look at seeing the orders they come in front then. So the biggest benefactor seems to actually be Des Grabowski. He's up to P3, so that's, I said he would be one of the guys that could really benefit from staying out that extra lap, and it really has paid off. So as it shakes out then after the stops, it is still Barone that leads. He's already, I think, up towards the first chicane as he's heading down about halfway down the straight. Kral is in second place, but now it's Grabowski up to third. Diago fourth, now side by side as they come up towards the first chicane. The Carter Sawyer's alongside him on his outside as they charge towards the first part of the chicane. And it will be a braking duel here. Rutting tries to go around the outside. Diago's having none of it. Goes back through on the second part, but then goes slightly too deep. Runs across the ground. Will that be a slowdown penalty? I'm not sure. But he gets it back gathered up together. Looks to he did it enough to avoid a penalty. Now here comes Carter Sawyer to try and put himself alongside Rutting as they come down the back straight. These guys battling like it's NASCAR at Talladega. And these guys going at it hammer and tongs despite the fact they've only just done a pit stop, Randy.
And Kevin Rotting to the inside as they go down into the second chicane. He should be able to hold on to that. And actually out in front, they're side by side between Dennis Grabowski and Vedran Kral as well. I think Dennis is getting that position, not sure, but Kevin Rotting able to slip through. Matty Kasoij is able to hold on. Raul Diago and Sergi Lorenz, they both fall though. So great move there by both Kevin and Matty.
And this seems to be the key thing then at this point, Randy, is that effectively these guys have done their pit stop, they've done their fuel saving. Now the thinking is, right, now we've done the strategy part, now we're going to go racing, now we're going to really go for it. As again they go side by side again, up to the front for second place. Kral and Grabowski move switch, that's up to Grabowski into second place. And the question is, without the benefit of a draft, how much can he try and close in that gap to Rocker Barone in front? Now Barone's got a really massive margin in the lead at this point in time. We're looking to see exactly where they are. Barone's already hit the second kink on the run up towards Indianapolis, whereas Grabowski just left the first one with Kral in tow. And back behind them for fourth, it's still going at it. It's now side by side. Rutting will be on the outside, Carter Sawyer on the inside, with Diago and Lorenz looking on. And this one's got to work its way somewhere. Carter Sawyer gets his nose back in front and holds on into the position. That will be over fourth place, fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh all together. And I feel like, Randy, now the pit stops are done, now the racing is really going to start. Forget fuel saving, it's now all the way to the end, flat out.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you know that there's really no way you can catch Rocco. Also, important to note, Vedran Kral is able to pick that position back up from Dennis Grabowski. Those two are likely going to just swap places back and forth the entire rest of this race, simply because whoever's in third place is going to have a draft based on whoever's in second place. And that second place car is not going to have a draft at all, but actually Vedran very loose on the entry into the Porsche curves, and Dennis did a great job to not get into the back of him. Fantastic driving to not, essentially end Vedran's race and not get any more damage on Dennis, because we know he was involved in that incident coming to the green. So they're going to keep their gap, but it's not a huge gap. Matty Kasoja, if these guys pick up over each other, enough, Vedran Kral or Dennis Grabowski, if they fight too hard, they will have this four-car scrap of Kasoja, Rotting, Diago, and Lorenz all over the back of him, and that is not what they want. They want to swap places back and forth. Dennis goes to the outside, but Dennis, you think about the long term here. You just made that move, and now look, you've got company behind.
Oh, he certainly has, because Carter Sawyer and co are going to start to really close in now. Across the line they come. So let's just confirm the order as they come across on the first racing lap after everyone has stopped. Barone leads by a whopping 8.7 seconds from Kral in second place. Grabowski dueling away with him in third. Carter Sawyer leads the next queue of cars that contains Kevin Rutting, Raul Diago, who's lost out a couple of spots, and Sergi Lorenz. Then behind them, another trainer car headed by Tom Valentini. He's got no one to flash his headlight at, but because effectively everyone else is doing it to him behind. And that includes Simon Fagel, Richard Avery, and Jake Hewlett. And they round out positions 8 to 11, those four. And then Dakota Fripp, Rodrigo Baronillo started 27th up to P13. That's a great effort from Rodrigo in car 11. And as to some of the drivers that are further down than we may have expected, Ricardo Castelletto only down in 20th place. I mean, that's after a strong start, Randy. He really is having such a poor race.
And he's in the pits right now, so I'm not sure what actually has happened to Ricardo, but looking at the lap charts, there's a handful of laps that actually weren't given times, and I would not be surprised actually if Ricardo may have actually picked up more than that one speeding penalty, than that one black flag in the cut track penalty, because he's just sort of fallen.
Then for second place, Grabowski got the run down the first part of the Mulsanne straight. They're on to the second part now. And look at how determined Kral is. He's back in the tow. Grabowski goes back towards the racing line. It'll take him given the outside line as they're running through, but Kral says, if you're going to leave the door open, thank you very much. Slides alongside, and as they run parallel down towards the second chicane, Kral should have enough to sweep in front and have the move done before they get to the chicane and hit the brakes. Yes, they do. And Krall is back through again. As we said, this will go on back and forth all the way through the race until something has to give. So these guys continue fighting. But again, I have to say it once more. The harder these two fight each other, the easier it's going to be for the 4 cars behind, led by Matty Cardasoria and car 21, to close in and make it a 6-car battle for the podium places. It really could get tense.
Yeah, it really can. And again, here comes Dennis Grabowski to the outside in Mulsanne. Actually, Vedran's going to kind of swerve at him, and that's actually a little bit silly, I think. He's going to fight him side by side in Mulsanne, and there's actually no reason to do this because... Oh, and Dennis actually gets touched. He's going to go run wide, and you know he's going to be upset about that. That's into the wall as well. I think that might be his day done. That car still looks drivable. I think with the aero damage, though, it might just be too slow. And Vedran, that was really silly, I have to say, because doing what they were doing was actually the fastest way for them to proceed. Them to just swap the spot back and forth. You let the car behind get the momentum, swing by, you go single file on the chicane. Then the person who got past, let them swing ahead, single file on the chicane, and then swap again, go single file into Mulsanne, and then do it again on the run down Indianapolis. That's how they were going to stretch this gap over these guys behind. Now, Vedran's going to be out there all alone, and it's not a major gap from Vedran to Matty Cardasoria as we come, and it's going to be close. This could be the white as Rocco comes across the line, or we might just get 2 to go.
And look at the time when we came across the line, it was 31 minutes 47 seconds. I've got a feeling we may get 2 more laps here in this run as they head back down towards Maison Blanche and then the entrance to the Porsche curves. And I think Grabowski's struggling because he's lost out to, looks like Raul Diaga. Also now going past is Kevin Rutting to the first part. He's loose. And that now puts also Sergei Lorenz past, so that is now Grabowski in trouble in the number 9 McLaren after the contact between himself and Krall. So that's really put himself a spanner into the works, all the way down to 6th or 7th position. He really is struggling now, and I fear it's only going to be a matter of time before he starts to come under pressure from that second 4-car pack behind, which is now led by Jake Hewlett, who has got himself around Tom Valentini. So as they come up through the 4th chicane for what I think is the 3rd to last time, onto what I think is the penultimate lap. Looking at the time across the line, 35 minutes 41. Now that to me is 4 minutes and about 19 seconds. Yeah, 2 to go. So we are going to get 2 more laps here at Le Mans, which is fantastic. 2 more runs of the 8.5 mile, 38 turn Circuit de 24 du Mans course in La Sarthe. As the race heads through, let's see what this happens. So Barreau then leads by 9.2 seconds. Krall is now, as we said, out on his own at the moment. But Matty Cardasoria has broken the toe and distanced himself from the guys behind in that pack. And he's now chasing after Vedran Krall. And looking at the lap times last time, it was 3:54.9 for Krall, 3:54.2 for Cardasoria. The gap is 1.7.
Oh, but Cardasoria gets very loose coming through Tetra Rouge, and he's going to give up all that time, and that may have actually just locked Vedran into P2.
Have to wait and see, because of course now coming off that corner, watch for Diago, watch for Rutting, watch for Sergei Lorenz, all of them in the slipstream. Here comes Diago, and Cardasoria can sense it. He's already going to the end side to defend, but the straight line advantage won't work. It's only going to help Diago up towards the first part of the chicane. Now here comes Kevin Rutting, almost making it 3 abreast into the chicane. Cardasoria tries to defend on the inside, but the second part will put him on the outside. He's got so much grip and confidence. The 2 almost touch. Cardasoria goes almost into the tyres, has to put the brakes on, and loses 3 spots in the space of 1 corner. Now then, was that Cardasoria just trying to hold on too much, or was that Diago simply not leaving enough room, as it's now Rutting up into P3?
I think it may have been a little over-eager, but Cardasoria was a pretty aggressive move down to the inside, but it's also an aggressive move from Raul Diego down around the outside as well. And that little bit of a touch, part of running here at Le Mans, you kind of have to, you have to know to a certain extent when you need to just sort of give up. Especially here, it's the penultimate lap. You're in a pack of cars, so you guys are going to be trading spots due to the draft. Surely this entire, the final 2 laps, lap and a half. So.
Spin for Grabowski. Spin for Grabowski exiting the second chicane. I think either there was contact between himself and Valentini or somebody, but he definitely got loose on the second part and has lost even more spots. He's down outside the top 10 now. So it goes from bad to worse for car number 9. Replay on the screens right now. And looks as though as he comes out of the chicane, I'm going to quickly rewind myself to have a look. And the answer is he was following Simon Fagel on the exit of the corner. Oh, he didn't. Oh, he jumped. He wasn't pushed. He did it all by himself.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate there, and you know that's one of the things we see happen with this McLaren at times. You hop over those curves a little bit too hard and it'll go around. That's actually the same thing Matty Kasoja did through the center of Tetra Rouge. He caught the sausage curve that's on the inside and just kicked that car loose. Luckily it wasn't a spin, but he lost himself a few spots, but still, definitely bad news for these guys in McLaren as they try to catch too much of those curves.
And this battle for fourth is not letting go because, of course, we've now got Diago that is still set in P3. Rutting fourth. Sergio Lorenz all over the place as he defends from Carter Sawyer, but also looking trying to close in too. Simon Fagel's not too far away. He's fancies the top 5 here. He can sniff that chance. He's broken away from the cars behind him, of course, which is led by Jake Hewlett, who himself is battling with Richard Avery and Tom Valentini, who's lost a couple more spots. So as we head up towards the final lap, then the final 8.5 miles here at Le Mans, we could be in here for a grandstand finish. Of course, Rocco Barone has got the lead pretty much at a canter out in front. He's coming up towards the exit of the Porsche curves through the right and left kink and the short squirt down towards the Ford chicane for the penultimate time. Rocco Barone showing why he is a World Championship Grand Prix Series grade driver. As he heads through up onto the pit straight out of the Ford chicane for the second to last time onto the pit straight. One more lap to go, and the white flag is in the air here at Le Mans for race round 6 of season 4 of the 2016 iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series. On to lap 11 of this race, and he looks as though that we had Barone crossed the line with about 23 seconds left to go on the clock then, so he's got a little bit of time for one more lap. Kral is in second place, pretty safe, but behind for third place it is still Action Stations with Diago leading the queue of 4 cars and Fagel closing in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Fagel right now, he's got himself a decent gap, especially, you know, as he starts closing in on Kasoja. So it's going to be a big ask, I think, for Fagel to be able to pick up any spots here, because he's just far enough out that he won't be getting much of the slipstream, and that's not going to help him on the run up towards Tetra Rouge. Going through the final part of those S's, he gets a little bit loose and runs over the grass, and that's going to essentially, I think, take him out of this. You know, you look at that gap that he has to Kasoja. It's going to take these guys racing each other hard and probably a bit of contact to get him back into it. But Raul Diago, white flag lap here, and he's going to have his hands full of Kevin Rotting as they go down into the first chicane. If Raul's smart, he'll just give it to him here. No point really fighting hard for it just yet. Just slip him behind and maybe make another move into the next chicane in Mulsanne, or maybe just sit there and wait and think about making a run down into Indianapolis.
And look at the speed that Carter Sawyer carried through the apex of the first chicane. He really closed back in on Sergio Lorenz. And also keep watching for Simon Fagel. He's the 5th car in shot there as they come through. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th all together down on the second part of the Mulsanne strain. At the moment, as we can see, it's never certain until they cross the checkered flag or take the checkered flag. First and second seem to be cemented, but it's all go for the final podium spot. Who's going to get it out of these 4? Rutting holds it. Here comes Sergio Lorenz for 4th place on Raul Diago. He has to give him the room. And looks like Lorenz tries for the move around the outside. Carter Sawyer tries to get back in the mix as well. They're all together on the exit of the second chicane. Now they have to hit the run through the Mulsanne kink. Here comes Lorenz trying to force the issue on Diago. This is for P4. Side by side again. Carter Sawyer in the slipstream. Will it be 3 wide for 4th position down there? Look at that, Sergio Lorenz. What are you doing? Forcing up towards the white line. That's pretty rude, and rightly so. I think Carter Sawyer flashing the headlights. Back to the Mulsanne kink. Under brakes once again for the Mulsanne right-hander. Carter Sawyer looks for the outside to get the cut back, but it's still Rutting that leads. It is now pretty much all to play for with half a lap to go, and it's not settled by any means, Randy. 5 for 3rd place, and it's anyone's guess at this point.
It was an aggressive block from Lorenz going into Mulsanne, but I think it was a necessary one. Yeah, a lot of people might see that as a silly block on Matty Kasoja, but it would have been a silly move by Kasoja trying to make it 3 wide on the brakes down into Mulsanne corner. That almost surely would have seen at least 2 of them off, as Kasoja is all over the headlights as they run into Indianapolis.
Look at this all together. This is what we like. This is sprint racing at Le Mans. Carter Sawyer tries to go around the outside. Sergio Lorenz has the grip he needs. Now Fagel gets back into the mix. Tries to cut back again towards Arnage. Out of Arnage. Now the run back towards the pits. Here they come. It's all who are back gets the best traction off the corner. And now the back up towards Maison Blanche and the high-speed Porsche curves. We'll go to Rocco Barone in the lead in a few moments' time. He is currently very comfortably out in the lead, but it's his battle of a third. We cannot take our eyes off. Rutting currently has it. Here comes Raul Diago to the outside into Maison Blanche. That's impossible if he can hold on to it. Raul Diago goes around the outside of Kevin Rutting. That is sensational. Raul Diago with an impossible pass on Kevin Rutting. He gets 3rd place. Can't Rutting do anything about that to try and get it back? but back through up towards the chicane for the final time. He started from pole, he's led all the way through, and never looked like he was going to lose it. Out of the final corner for the final time, Rocker Barone, he's a World Championship Grand Prix driver for a reason, up towards the line. He wins at Le Mans in the Blancpain Sprint Series. Second will go to Vedran Kral, but for third place, they're all going to pile into the Ford chicane together, and it will be with the best pass I've seen all season so far. Raul Diago, who will just snatch third on the line from Kevin Rutten fourth. Sergei Lorenz gets fifth, Matty Carter-Sawyer sixth, and Simon Fagel gets seventh. Hewlett eighth, Avery ninth, and Dennis Grabowski, after all his spins, gets 10th place. Randy, what a finish!
Yeah, I mean, some insane moves there going down on that final lap. I mean, that outside, round the outside pass going into the Porsche curves, and actually, interestingly enough, behind it was, I think it was Matty Casoya tried to do the same thing on Sergio Lorenz, but he just couldn't quite make it stick. But a super exciting battle here for, you know, your final podium spot and amongst your top five, whereas the top two, and especially Rocco's essentially out there watching volleyball highlights. Thanks to the chat for that, Joe.
Just replaying that pass again, Raul Diago somehow just finding the grip on the outside, and it's difficult to pass sometimes at Le Mans at the best of times, but to pull off a move like that is absolutely sensational. That is definitely the move of the season so far, and a definite contender for move of the season all season, because I'm not sure, someone's going to have to pretty much pull off a spectacular move to try and top that one. That was an awesome race for the battle for third place, and Raul Diago with a very hard-fought final step on the podium. The last few cars are going to finish and come across the line. We'll take you through the results now then of round 6 of season 4 of the iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series here at Le Mans. And of course it was a victory. P number 1 for car number 1. It's Rocker Barone who wins by 8 seconds from Vedran Kral in second place. Raul Diago with a sensational move for third place at the death from Kevin Rutten in fourth. Sergei Lorenz gets fifth. Matty Carter-Sawyer in sixth. Simon Fagel closed into seventh in the end. Jake Hewlett finishes 8th, Richard Avery 9th. Dennis Grabowski rounds up the top 10 after a difficult day at the office. Tom Valentini 11th, Dakota Fripp 12th, Ricardo Silva 13th. Julien Offray is the best non-McLaren in 14th place in the Audi. Ricardo Ferreira 15th, then Nestor Kiasoglu in 16th place. Roque Garcia 17th, Canna Bassol in the Mercedes 18th. Then Roberto Gutierrez, Luigi Nespolino, Bruno Fontalva. And that rounds out the top 21 cars. John Peasney, what could have been for him down in 22nd. Then Rodrigo Baranillo, Riley Preston at only 24th after early damage. Then Cohen Klopman, Ricardo Castelletto also suffering. Daniel Cruz, Sander van der Velde and Mirko Salati round out the 29 cars that took the start. Of course, only, it looks to me, 22 saw the finish. And, well, looking above, of course, I think we're going to, hopefully, I'm going to think possibly 1 or 2 interviews to have a chat. We do have possibly 1 or 2 drivers that are waiting to have a chat to us, maybe, because there's a lot of activity here in the just outside the commentary box after what a brilliant race. But Randy, that was purely a dominant victory from start to finish, all the way for Rocker Barone, and pretty much apart from the pit stop shake-up, when of course everyone's going to be out of sequence, he simply was never bested.
Yeah, I mean, Rocco, he drove a brilliant race out here at Le Mans. You know, really, we talked about it a bit last week and the week before. This is sort of what we expected with all the drafts that you get at Le Mans, that there's going to be a fantastic battle somewhere, and that's exactly what we got. Raul Diago, that was one of the most impressive passes I've seen in a long time, and, you know, I think coming away from Le Mans, yeah, some people might gripe about the BOP, but at the end of the day, likes of your BMW and your Mercedes, always kind of going to struggle with the top end, especially on the McLarens and the Audis, but especially considering we don't have a Le Mans aero spec. I think this was a fantastic race. Had a couple of the non-McLarens run relatively strong, and you know, I think going forward to next week, I'm real excited about next week at Road America. Going to be a fantastic race, and you know, I think the balanced performance will really suit that track with the long straights, but there's a mix of good high-speed downforce corners as well.
Yeah, and that, of course, will take us on to the next rounds of the championship, of course, next week, so be sure to tune in for that one. Guys, if you want to also get more RaceSpot action, of course, you can head across to go and join Will Vincent, of course, who is taking you through the iRacing World Cup opening ceremonies. They're going to go live just as we finish this race as well. and that is the BCCWC Art Race finale as well. I'm going to take you through some of the other races that we've got coming up through it. Of course, you've seen the sprint series, but if you want to see the finale of the GT World Championship, the endurance race, you can watch tomorrow from 1:30 PM. Will Vincent, Randy will be back as well, along with Jimmy Broadbent. It is the finale at the Nürburgring. We will crown a Blancpain GT World Champion or Champion team tomorrow as well. Also, big day for racing too. The VLN Endurance Championship finale also, as we'll have Paul Matthew Smith, Cameron Walsh, Francisco Scaramuza. Randy will be back too, as also will Alvin Neves Rosario, and also the Skip Barber World Cup as well on Sunday on the Phoenix 2008 Oval with Will Vincent also there too. As for the next round of the championship for Blancpain, I need someone to actually tell me when that is.
Road America.
Road America, thank you much for saving my bacon on that one, Randy, much appreciated. So, Road America comes up one of the best US road courses in that country. Be sure to join us for round 7. And what a way to do that. And of course, going towards Road America, Randy, what could we expect from these cars around the circuit as glorious as Road America?
Well, like I kind of talked about a little bit, I'm really excited looking at that. I haven't done any testing yet, but just thinking about that track, you have the long straights, so you'll have the likes of the McLaren and the Audi should be strong, but there's also several parts of that racetrack that highly depend on downforce, so the BMW and the Mercedes, I think, should be strong. I think the Audi and the McLaren will likely be better in race trim because, let's be honest, with those long straights that we see at Road America, going to be easier for them to get passes done. However, I don't think it's going to be a situation where the BMW and the Mercedes are just sort of dead slow. I'm really excited going into next week, and I think it could be one of the best circuits of the championship for all 4 cars overall in terms of the BOP.
Wow, if that doesn't get you hyped up for next week, I'm sure you want to try and tune in to find out just how good next week's racing could be then. So, we're going to sign off, of course, from another fantastic racing night, of course, here on Friday night prime time on RaceSpotTV and iRacingLive. Le Mans has given us a fantastic race, so Rocco Barone leaves as car number 1 in P number 1, and we'll be back next week, of course, for more action from Road America. From myself, Scott Woodward, from Randy Chenworth, and from Hugo Luis on cameras, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you, of course, over the weekend for action, of course, with Blancpain GT World Championship, VLN and 2K Skip Barber World Cup. And join us next week for more Blancpain Sprint Series action on iRacingLive and RaceSpotTV. Bye for now.